Well, we're moving into a new realm here today as we move from chapter 13 into chapter 14 of Romans. And now Paul is going to be discussing how do we deal with people who are, quote unquote, weaker than we are. Stay tuned. The word is up next. Welcome back to the Word, where we're going to be diving into people who are considered weak, people who are considered strong, the differences between the two, and unfortunately, the judgmentalism that happens between the two. And is that not what's happening right now, today, in our society as well as almost 2,000 years ago? Let's see what's going on today in our world. What is going on today in our world? Well, the perception is that the weak are being abused, the marginalized, people who are different, and it makes no difference what kind of difference we're talking about, and I'm not going to get into the specifics right now, but people who are considered different are pushed off to the side, off to the fringes. Society is doing this all the time. And the one challenge that the context of what Paul is trying to describe as is it's also going on within the framework of the church itself. So why don't we dive in? Let's take a look at Romans chapter 14. We'll start at verse 1. We will wrap up our today's time with verse number 4. Now, 14 and even into 15, Paul will continue to dialogue about this particular topic using different analogies to drive home his point. But we'll get there. I don't want to give it to you too early or too late. But we want to be able to give you the Paul's point in an appropriate, timely manner. All right. So let us now look at chapter 14, beginning at verse 1. God writes through St. Paul, "As for the one who is weak in faith, welcome him, but not to quarrel over opinions. One person believes he may eat anything, while the weak person believes he only may eat vegetables. Let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, and let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats, for God has welcomed him. Who are you to pass judgment on the servant of another? It is before his own master that he stands or falls, and he will be upheld, for the Lord is able to make him stand." Here's the big point. And the point that Paul is trying to make simply here is this: let no one judge no one. That's simply the point. There is no judgment here, not from us as human beings. There is no prejudice in the realm of human beings. There is no prejudice in the realm of the church. Now, some may argue that point. Granted, if you want to discuss that point, please comment. But here's the other interesting thing. God is sharing with us that is not our responsibility. It is not something that we take on as, to use a figure of speech, judge, jury, and executioner. It's not up to us. Now, yes, we have a judicial system that judges according to laws, whether or not someone has broken a law. That's not what is happening here. That is not what Paul is talking about. They're two separated realms. They're what is called the kingdom of the left, which is the civil side, and the kingdom of the right, which is the church side. And in both sides, ultimately, it's God who judges at the end. But we're not there yet. We're trying to address issues that are going on in the framework of the church, of judgmentalism, and also prejudice. And Paul is saying that does not belong in the church. What does belong in the church? What belongs more than anything else in the church? One thing, the proclamation of the salvation of Jesus Christ. Now that has two sides, just like a sharp double-edged sword. Go back to and refer back to Ephesians chapter 6 regarding the armor of God. However, the one thing has two sides. And the first side is the pointing out of sin. Now, if you look at what we just read here in Romans 14, if you got your Bibles out, I'm praying that you got your Bibles out here. If you don't, pause, grab one, come back and restart. As for the one who is weak, weak in what area? Weak in physicality, weak in spirituality, weak in emotionalism, weak in what? Well, if we read further, it's going to be weak in the context of not mature. Not weak in something that is frail, something that is physically not well. No, this is the variation between weak and strong is more immature versus mature in the faith. Similar connectivities. So what are we looking at here? So the one who is weak, immature in faith, maybe immature in life, welcome him. But do not quarrel over opinions. See, what we eat, the situation that Paul is using, the analogy that Paul is using, is over what we eat. It's an opinion. It's not a godly law as to what we eat or what we don't eat, at least for Christians. There is no law in that regard when it comes to Christians. Yet, we all have varying opinions over what we think we should eat or not eat. Now, one person believes he may eat anything. Okay, meat eaters, balanced diet. I'm going to throw the positive spin on that one. But usually, anything that's available, and again, you want to refer to what is open. Go back to Acts chapter, and I think it's 10, but I'll put it down on the bottom just for confirmation. What God is saying to Peter about food. But we'll get off of that for a moment and come back to this. Only one person believes he may eat anything, while the weak person eats only vegetables. Now, which is really interesting fascination too, because if you look at Genesis after the flood, or pre-flood, let me say it this way first. Pre-flood, the human race were vegetarians, or to use a word that's being used now, vegans, except for maybe they were using animal milk, like goat's milk or cow's milk and the like, or lamb's milk. But pretty much the human race prior to the flood was vegetarian. It wasn't until after the flood that God allowed the human race to eat animal meat. The only caveat, make sure the blood is drained out of it, because the blood is considered the life force, and that's a whole other topic. We'll save that for another day and time. Bottom line here is this. It doesn't matter what we eat. And Paul is getting at to the judgmentalism of people on both sides. This is not one side saying, I'm better than the other. No, this is what Paul's trying to stop. Okay? He's trying to stop. I'm better than you. I'm stronger than you. He doesn't want that, because that's not important. Let's listen to what God is saying here. Let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, look down upon, also to be mean toward one another. And let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats, for God has welcomed him. Isn't that what's going on right now? Let's say one side is saying, I can do whatever I want, and you don't have any right to tell me otherwise. The other side is saying, you're killing animals. That's not right. Don't do this. But here's the kicker. It's not about whether or not what we eat. That's not the point of the story. What is the point of the story? And if you're doing this in a study, pause the video, talk about it a couple of minutes. What is the point of this example? All right, the point of the example is we are all one under the umbrella of Jesus Christ. We are all one. It makes no difference whether or not we're vegetarians, we're meat eaters. It makes no difference whether even we're more on the extreme on one side or the other. It is not important enough to argue over opinions of food. What do we discuss? What do we live by? We live by the grace that is Jesus Christ and his forgiveness. For God has forgiven us through Christ. God has forgiven us of our judgmentalism. God has forgiven us of our opinionated points of view. God has forgiven us and given us a new life, reorientation of our brain to say, wait a minute. I'm not here to act in judgment over someone else. That's God. Now, what we are dealing with here is not sinful activity, aka against one of and or all of the 10 commandments. That's not what we're dealing with here. This has nothing to do with commandments, except for the fact that it might be breaking the 8th commandment, you shall not bear false witness. What God is trying to get at is simply this. Don't do it. Why will I not do it? Well, I'll give you the fundamental reason. If you're wondering why we should or should not do it, you need to reread the beginning of Romans again all the way up to this point. Because, quite frankly, it's about being forgiven and living according to the forgiven way. I have been forgiven of all of my sins. I have been given a new life in Jesus Christ. That does not give me the right and opportunity to be judgmental or have judgmentalistic thoughts or be divisive or be angry. As a matter of fact, it gives me the right to do the total and complete opposite, to be loving and compassionate and merciful. There may be issues. Don't get me wrong, there are always going to be issues from people to people, even within the church. But how we deal with those issues is the most important thing. Paul's going to get into that as we move through the letter, this chapter of the letter. But the reality simply is, he's setting the tone. It's not about judging, being judgmental towards somebody because they have a particular point of view. Doesn't mean we don't talk about it, but we don't judge. For God has welcomed him. That's the end of verse number 3. So today it's not about food. It's not about weakness. It's not about strength. It's about maturity. And maturity based upon love and mercy and grace that God has given to you. So, think on that one for today. Discuss, if you're doing this in a group context, discuss it more. But don't go too far, because we've got a little further to go after this. So let me just remind you, if you're watching this on Facebook, maybe if you're watching this on Facebook for the first time, like our page. And if you like this video, share it with your friends. If you're watching us on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, there's a little bell right over here that you can click on that will give you notifications of any additional videos that we at Faith Lutheran Church in Huntsville, Texas are posting. And you will also use that, will ding you when we are live streaming, which is coming up Sunday morning at 10:30. We will be live streaming our worship service. More on that a little bit after our devotion on Sunday morning. So look forward to our Sunday morning devotional. Look forward to our time together with each other starting next week, and look forward to our worship time. Look forward to seeing you in-house or online. And you guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you on Sunday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.